content to fix these things, or just say, hey, Brad.
What's up, Sean?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm
What?
I said I'm sick as a dog.
Yeah, you don't sound too good. Got the coov.
Oh no,
Or the flu, or the cold.
I definitely have a fever. I have had a fever for like the last 2-3 days. I'm scared if I get tested and it comes up positive that they'll like put me on house arrest for like the next like 2 months, and they'll probably like phone tap or wiretap all my communications, and it'll probably go against my credit report. It'll prevent me from getting my security clearance based on my future ambitions, and my whole life will be over. And I'll become homeless, and I'll have to like, I don't know, find shelter somewhere. And I don't know, I just feel like there's nothing but a downward spiral if I get tested and it's positive, based on society treating me as a leper. You know what a leper is?
Yeah.
From biblical times.
Yeah. I've known people with COVID though none of that happens. But are you losing your? The telltale is the loss of sentence and taste. So you have that going on.
I mean, there's nothing for me to really smell. Yeah, I'm kind of like in bachelor mode, so like I don't really cook anything, and I haven't really been going out. What am I supposed to pull out a stick of deodorant and just try to smell it?
No, I don't know. Just food isn't supposed to have any taste at all. So if you have any food or drink or anything,
No, so like I can still taste things.
yeah, then it's probably just a cold. I mean, it could be COVID, but like I said, everyone that I've known that has had it has said they lose their sense and smell. But
I mean, like I did 3.5 miles last Friday, and every time like I start pushing myself to try to hit 4 mile runs in the mornings, like my knees always feel like they're about to buckle. And so I haven't ran since last Friday. Part of which is because right under my knee, it just hurts. I don't know if it's shin splints. I don't know what it is, but like it's taking me longer to recover, like an entire week.
hmm.
I don't think I'm going to be capable of running a half marathon, man. I'm just being honest.
No, that's fine. I
If
mean,
I
if your
can't,
knees are messed up, man, I wouldn't push it.
if I can't consistently run 4 mile, perform 4 mile runs in the mornings, like how am I going to do like I don't know. I can't do the math. 3 times that. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. It's not looking good. I'm effed up. So,
Well, any good news?
I saved money on my insurance by switching to Geico. Are those still commercials that they do?
I think so. The gecko is still out there. Thing's still out there.
Good news is I got like 90% of my back end services deployed, and bad news is it's not really bad news. Is I haven't really figured out why I can't get a service bus notification hitting my courier app of an incoming like order request. So I'm going to lock myself in this evening. Well, this evening I'll probably be pooped, but I'll lock myself in. I honestly don't have a choice because I'm sick. But this weekend I'll figure it out, and hopefully by next Friday I could demo an app where there's just two solutions: my customer app, my courier app, and I don't have like a dozen other solutions running in parallel that's overloading my machine, and it could just be a clean like demo of customer places his order for a Denny's All-American Grand Slam with the Oreo shake. My courier app receives that order, and then it does the simulation. Yeah, so that would be a huge milestone. And then after that, I would have to finish implementing the story for a rental pickup. So rental drop off is no different from ordering food. A rental pickup is your time has expired with this item or items, and a courier comes to pick it up. And if you're not there or it's not there, then it bills for like 2-3 times the cost of the purchase of that item. Yeah, so that's on the radar. Then I'll field test it, and then I'll deploy it in Google Play because it's only an Android version. And then I'll have one download per month of the app, and that's it.
Not after you fly a giant flag across the ocean.
It's a fly a banner.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, they have that here.
Yeah,
all the time.
He talks about it.
I saw a huge LCD screen being like floating over the water in South Beach. I don't think anybody looks at it though.
Probably. I mean, you can't. If you saw it, you can't probably not see a giant LCD screen floating in the river. Ocean.
I'm just gonna go to King of Diamonds. I'm gonna recruit some strippers, and I'm gonna have them come down to South Beach to pass out flyers and give lap dances, and that's how I'm gonna promote my business. In that order. So.
Well, there you go. I'll solve it.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm pretty intermediate now when it comes to Azure Service Bus and Azure SignalR and Azure Storage Tables and Azure. What else did I do something in? No, I can't say Azure SQL. I've never been strong in SQL. But yeah, achievement unlocked. So
cool. Are you gonna still try to develop it as a business then? Are you still meeting with the business mastermind groups and stuff like that?
So the one food truck owner, we probably talk like once a week because it's almost impossible to get food trucks. It's almost impossible to deliver food, hot meals to the beach based on code compliance and laws that just make it extremely difficult to get food trucks close enough to the beach. Mm-hmm. And so ever since we recognize that we don't really have that much to talk about. So, and plus, I mean, he probably lost confidence in me because I've been deploying all these backend services to a QA environment for the past 4 months. You know, I keep telling them the same status, so I'm sure that's not helping.
Yeah.
But I mean, it feels. I don't know. I'm feeling good. I feel a sense of achievement. You know.
Good.
And it keeps me close to the actual like programming versus being an astronaut architect and drawing pictures and researching vendor technologies and not really being able to relate to actual implementation details in the trenches. So I feel like this keeps me like ingrained. I don't know if ingrained is the right word, but it helps, it keeps me, I don't know, I feel like it maintains my respect as a programmer.
Grounded, maybe.
Grounded, thank you.
Yeah. So you're not on your ivory tower yet?
I haven't I haven't I haven't been provided my first platform to get on the ivory tower. I'm still onboarding,
Gotcha. So you're like eyeing your ivory towers out in the.
onboarding
Just
everything
like
about
yours.
fintech. What's up?
I said you're eyeing your ivory tower out there on the horizon. Then go. I'll be on that one right there.
How much do you think the brain can like really cognitively load?
I don't know, man. How much can it load? Like,
I mean, there's things like, for example, like we can remember. It was either 7 or 4. Like 4 is like pretty much no problem when it comes to
oh yeah,
like
7 plus or minus
things.
3. Yeah, on average.
But like when you keep getting fed information and information and information and information, and then you get fed little tidbits of data and data and data and data that you have to figure out how to convert that into information and information and information. Like how much can a average mind really like digest? You know,
I don't know. Probably 70 years worth of that, plus or minus 30.
I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn. You familiar with SafeStack
Safe stack.
for Agile or for enterprise
The scale.
implementation of Agile?
Oh, scaled agile. So like
Yeah,
product increments and
yeah. I
that.
think it's
Yeah, we did.
program increments, but yeah,
Yeah, we did that at my last gig. We'd have these big planning events every, like, I don't remember if it was quarterly or,
8 to 12 weeks.
yeah, it was every so often we'd have the PI planning is what they said it was. We'd go in and we'd all go through, like, all create all the stories and then like figure out dependencies between teams and figure out what the biggest priority was across teams. And
What was your experience like? Was it something that you favored? Was it something that you maybe based on your given position, you probably didn't have that much time or investment to appreciate? Like, what was your thoughts about it?
I think that the ceremonies were valuable. The problem was that a lot of time the plan was then treated as this is the plan. So like adjusting to change after the fact or to that wasn't recognized up front or whatever, or adding things in that weren't part of the plan was kind of like poo-pooed. Like, hey, we've got capacity to do a crap ton more work here. Yeah, but it's not part of the plan, and we don't want to add more. So it was just like
So contrary to following a plan instead of responding to change or whatever that agile bullet was.
yeah, it's the
From the
same thing.
manifesto.
It's the same thing with like it's just like a macrocosm, a worse macrocosm of Scrum ceremonies to begin with, where it's you've got your sprint planning, right? And then you're supposed to replan your sprint every day. That's the point of the Scrum. It's not it's not a status update. At least if you follow the James Copeland.
I'm not really a fan of him.
I'm a big fan because he says all the things that I believe in, so it's confirmation bias. But no, but you're supposed to like replan every day. That's what you're blocked on and what you've been working on and what you're going to try to get done within the day time frame. But it gives a chance to. It's not a status meeting. It's to reprioritize things and to change things up. But a lot of times it's like, no, this is a sprint. We're trying to reach this magical like land where we can track our velocity in reality, when like 90% of the time you're not actually tracking real velocity. You're just like limiting yourselves based on the belief about. I think that velocity ends up being more of a limiting belief than it is any sort of reality. Like literally, you should be trying to stretch yourself. Like you should be failing half your sprints. That's what an average value is. You shouldn't be coding to your average. You should be going to your high point.
Do you think developers in general actually even care about velocity?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I care when it prevents like work from being taken up because of some arbitrary limit. Like, hey, if you want this done, is this going to help the customer? Is it going to prevent something else from getting out that you need? No. Well, then why aren't we working on that instead of this other thing? Well, we don't have, capacity or velocity. It's not in our number. It's like, well, damn it.
I understand
sure?
I understand the whole like notion of like story pointing or estimating. It's just, I guess I haven't been put in the position to care about managing development or managing expectations. And I guess that's what it is. Velocity is managing expectations, right? Or no?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a lame attempt to. I think it's just a lame attempt to be able to realistically plan, which to me is really means that you're just not trying to stretch yourself. It feels to me like what you're doing is like you're weightlifting. You weightlift for like the first few sprints until you establish how high you can go or where you think like your strength is, and then you never add weight. Like, okay.
Let me try to process that metaphor. So translated to development, they never factor in changes as time goes on with development team, whether people leave, new people come on, new paradigm shifts in regards to development habits, etc. Like, is it kind of translated to that when you say never add on more weight?
Well, yeah, the idea of not adding things to the sprint or to, that kind of stuff, when you've got capacity to do it, or even if you don't have capacity to do it, capacity can bleed across sprints. I don't understand the idea of trying to compartmentalize sprint and to try to prevent things from getting brought in. Like, to me, it should just be like you continuously work, and there's no artificial boundary of what's in or outside of the sprint. It's you have priority, and if you take the top priority things first, and if you can't work on those things, you go to the next thing. But there's no question about should we pull this into the sprint, because the whole goal is to just get software built.
Yeah, but I think I understand the other side is, and I would think that you would too, where you've worked with people that were not committed, where you've worked with people that were not committed to actually getting something done that was feasible given a certain like timeline. And so I'm already losing my train of thought. So I would think that I think it is kind of important to prioritize and maybe even give artificial deadlines, just because you're trying to manage human beings that will always choose the path of least resistance when it comes to organization of people.
But that's exactly like that's not what I'm suggesting at all.
Okay.
Like, if it's the top thing on the sprint and the product owner is like, this is the thing you should be doing, but you decide to skip that and go to the bottom of the list, like then it should just be a call out type thing. Hey, why aren't we working on this? Is it blocked? Then I'll go unblock it, which is the job of, the Scrum Master or whatever. So, but to say, okay, well, you finished up everything on the board. Now, well, the sprint's not over yet, so wait until the next sprint before we start adding things in. It's just dumb to me. It should just be a continuous flow.
Yeah, but aren't there? I don't know what the right term is, but I thought that there were like not really stretch goals, but by items that if you did finish your user stories, then there were like user stories that were on deck but weren't necessarily committed to. But if you finished them, then you could start working on it. I mean, I don't know what the formal term of that is.
Yeah. Sometimes people do that, but that's just indicative of the problem. There should be no such thing as a stretch goal. It should just be continuous. Like, the thing is that you're like, the inclination is to take the plan and try to reach that as the goal. But the thing is that because things can happen during a sprint that make that goal impossible. It's just continually go. It should just be a continuous flow. And the planning ceremonies really should be about prioritization and making sure that everybody's on board, not trying to say, trying to like compartmentalize what we're going to do in a sprint. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm on their side because I think it's very easy for people to go off on tangents and end up going down rabbit holes that really they don't have to go down. It's just because just because it's on the product backlog doesn't mean that it's ready for commitment. And maybe I'm wrong.
Well, then that goes really low on the. If it's not ready to be committed, then put it low on the backlog.
All right, so you're talking about from top down.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
Priority. It's a priority queue, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That's what a backlog is. It's a priority queue, and it should be able to flow seamlessly into work just continuously. There's no need to compartmentalize and say you're not going to work on things because they're outside the scope of this thing. The only reason you shouldn't work on something is because it's lower priority than the things that you're supposed to be working on. It's simple. It's like, hey, is this thing that's higher priority done yet? No. Can you work on it? Are you blocked? Yes or no? Yes, I am. I can work on it. Then work on it. Are you not working on it because it's blocked? Yes. Okay, I'll block it. You find something else to contribute to in the meantime.
You know what I disagree with? I understand the motivation, but I just disagree with it. Is that a story in mainstream is always a vertical slice of functionality, and I just don't think that it should always be like that. Like I get like what a user story. I understand why we're building the system, right? Ultimately, for actors to be able to use it, whether it's another machine or another user. Like I get that part. I just feel like it's extremely challenging, based on my personal experience, to deliver a vertical slice of functionality from UI all the way to inserting items in a database and have it all tested like within 2 weeks, like everything integrated within 2 weeks. Like,
yeah, that's why the 2-week deadline thing is stupid. It should just flow until it's done.
Well,
There's a difference between
do you agree?
headlines.
Do you agree that stories probably shouldn't always be, for the most part, a fully integrated vertical slice of functionality?
So stories, if we're actually using like user stories, probably should be a full feature that you're delivering, a capability that you're delivering, full stack, regardless of tech. Tasks or how you break down that work into tickets or into work items probably shouldn't be.
Okay.
And doesn't need to be, because you can work on things in parallel.
Would it make sense to have more enabler stories? Is that the term, enabler story? What would you call it?
Enabler stories.
You know what an enabler is?
Well, I know what an enabler is in general, but in terms of
so my understanding is, because I've been reading this whole like safe book in order to figure out what the F I'm supposed to be doing. So it's like 200 like 60 something pages. I'm halfway through it in like 24 hours. So a feature enabler, maybe I should have said that, is basically the architectural pieces for the architectural runway that these features are supposed to be built on top of. Right, that's my understanding. And so my question is, so for example, a feature enabler would be building in a component, or building in whatever foundation for cross-cutting concerns of a system. All right, and then once those cross-cutting concerns are declared, defined, designed, built, tested, monitored, then you can start adding features on top of it, and it's complementary, right? Features kind of depend on it in order for like the system integrated to actually like work. And so now that I gave that summary, I was asking like, would it make sense for there to be more feature enablers than user stories in a product backlog? And so the motivation for me saying this is, as I stated earlier, I find it extremely challenging to design, build, deploy, no, design, build, test, deploy, and monitor a vertical slice of that's fully integrated in 2 weeks. And you said, well, yeah, 2 weeks is stupid. It should be just ongoing. It gets done when it gets done. Like, that's what I thought I heard. And I was like, and I'm like, instead, let's just have a feature enabler for just implementing the wireframes, and that's it, and get that done. Basically, like at a component level, like build things out. And those are like a feature enabler. So at a component level, wireframes into like actual like web pages or mobile views. And then your data access layer, like build that out as a separate feature enabler. So you're basically building out components as individual like feature enabler stories, whatever you want to call it. And then you have a user story that streamlines all that together, has everything integrated, and you have 2 weeks to make that work. Like, I'm way more comfortable with that, and my mind wires to that way more easily than the way things are currently being done, where you have like this big bang effect that you have to get done in 2 weeks, with emphasis on testing, which I still don't fully understand how you do that within a 2 week period, because you're still learning, you're still making discoveries. So I know I said a lot, but I guess my question is, based on what I described and articulated, and I would like to think that this is how aerospace probably does things. Not to say that they do like Scrum or anything like that, but yeah, like the Fed says, or NASA says, all right, Boeing, you're going to be responsible for this component, right? The emergency release evacuation vehicle, and Lockheed Martin, you're gonna be responsible for the afterburners or the engines, and I don't know, SpaceX, you're gonna be responsible for XYZ, right? And then there's a separate like contractor that's going to be responsible for maybe integrating all that stuff together. Like, I mean, I guess that's how it will work. But I do know that like NASA delegates components um, to different contractors,
Mhm.
and then it gets integrated, right? Same thing with the airplane, I would think. Like, there's different partners that build out different components, and then it gets integrated. And I'm more comfortable with that because then stuff can be actually built and tested in isolation before it gets streamlined into an actual product, aka feature, and then goes through testing. So everything gets tested as a component at a unit level, and then once it gets like signed off on, accepted,
Yeah,
then there's a separate. I'm listening.
but that pre-necessitates like big upfront design, right? And
I'm
very
okay with that.
specific specs, right?
So
But you can't do that without the like the feature goal in mind, right?
so I think I honestly think I've matured in my career to actually appreciate big upfront design. I know, like, I don't want you guys to like throw me in a lake and see if I drown. If I don't drown, I'm declared a witch. But like, the more money that's at stake, I think the more the more safe the business is, or the lower risk it is to have a plan
Yeah,
that demonstrates that we thought this out as best as we can within a defined amount of time, and this is what we've identified in regards to considerations and risks. Like, to me, it makes sense to me. To me, it's almost like common sense. Now, the me 10 years ago, complete opposite feeling. But having gone through this whole like one, having worked at as a contractor a number of shops in which there's a significant percentage of effort that never actually like gets used. I feel like it's all about planning. Else, like, why are we doing it? If it, like,
yeah. No, I think that there's something to be said about upfront design for like layout and architecture with the general idea of how the system's going to be laid out and stuff like that. But I'm with NASA. There's more. I'm talking about upfront design. Like you have to literally spec out everything to the T in terms of like how it's going to interface with the rest of the world. But that doesn't provide for any sort of incremental delivery of anything useful.
so the difference, I think, is with NASA, the motivation is to run experiments. It's not to um, make money in a marketplace. Now, arguably, you could say that with the contractors, it is, but like with the National Aeronautics Space Agency, whatever NASA stands for, it's to launch rockets so that you can perform tests in microgravity, or that's the whole
Yeah,
point. So it's a different motivation, and yeah, it to me it kind of makes sense for you to have like your I's dotted and your T's crossed because you already know what you're after, and it's not about testing the marketplace. It's not about seeing the different personas of potential customers, how they're going to respond to your product. That's not what NASA
yeah,
does. And so I think the paradigm is completely different.
yeah, yeah. And that's it is completely different, and that's why I'm saying that. I don't know if the metaphor works for building software, I do think it's valuable to think up front about how your system's going to be laid out. And that you're right, that there's not a lot of, like we use spikes, I think, generally, if we're going to do something like that to define the plan around that stuff. And we'll usually cake in extra like points, which don't really mean anything, into the story, or at least estimation time for building out the foundational bits as we go. But I don't know that it would make sense to try to plan out every feature and build just the data access layer for that, and then try to integrate it later. Like I could see a deliverable API component maybe that's got some usage separate from the front end that uses it, but I don't know. There's a
Okay,
lot of
so take what you just said. Okay,
yeah.
and think about where it may be applicable. So one is uh, a situation where it's a startup. There's no such product out, and you got funding, and you basically want to test the marketplace with this minimal viable product. I can understand that, right? Do you really need to do upfront design for something that hasn't been proven in the marketplace that customers will pay money for? I get that part. Now let's shift to another context. The other context is you have several legacy systems that have been proven to sustain whatever products in the marketplace, and now the business is struggling to evolve based on ever-changing conditions within the marketplace. It's too hard to add features. There's just too much complexity right now. So let's modernize our technologies so that we can continue to support the business for the next 5 years, 10 years, right? I would say 10 years. Okay. Do you see the shift in why upfront design may be valuable? Now you got to take all these systems that work, they're proven, they're battle hardened, but now you need to take the inspiration of these systems and figure out how to create a new system based on what we've learned, and make sure that as the business evolves, that it won't be resistant to new systems being added to the pipeline. I mean, I'm sure I butchered that part, but do you see the difference in priority for upfront design, or maybe why you want to invest that time? No. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think applying design heuristics and you using, I mean, you get a lot of stuff out of the box. Just, I mean, there's
what I'm saying is, I think there's a lot of focus on accommodating the end user that's going to use the service or the product, but there's not enough thought or an investment to make sure that there's no disruptions that can hurt the business, which means that you compromise customer loyalty. And so once a business is established, I think that's something very important, right? So this is what Netflix does, right? Their whole like chaos engineering and circuit breakers and all that stuff is to make sure that one catastrophic event, that the longer you're in business, the more likely that it will happen. And your customer loyalty, I mean, if it's that hard to get customers to consistently pay you a
yeah.
monthly fee, and they're there for 5 years, 10 years, once you lose them, that's pretty much it, right? And so the thought process is like, in addition to user stories, like what features are being designed so that you don't lose customers, so that when something that's unfortunate does happen, you protect your investments, and it's an insurance policy. And I don't think there's a lot of focus put on that. And no, this doesn't apply towards minimal viable products. Why should it? But it does apply to a business that has more than 500,000 accounts, maybe in like 5 million accounts or more. And if something unfortunate happens, what's going to happen to that business in regards to regulators cracking down with penalties, in regards to customer loyalty and people dropping off and going to their competitors? Like, what is the cost? And it's something that's very important to at least consider and document, even if you don't implement it. I mean, there's a lot of shops where some of them may have like monitoring in place, but they don't have like any type of resiliency engineering like embedded. They don't have any type of redundancy added to their systems, but they have like millions of accounts. So that's the point that I was making, that isn't a priority with product owners or Scrum Masters.
Yeah.
And I get it, because they're about the product. They're not about the overall business.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's how does that fit into Scrum when Scrum is feature, like the paradigm is really feature development. It's not systems development. And maybe it's just that stuff should be done
before
or outside of the group that's actually implementing it. I don't really know if I have an answer.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Breaking down the work, and you know what? It's work. Just, we don't have to be so anal about if this fits into the framework or not. If you need upfront design, if you want to spend time figuring something out, put it on the backlog and work it as an item. It should just be a continuous flow of work. Who cares how the work is classified or how it's written up, or if you're using user stories or use cases or whatever. I think it should just be kind of like whatever works, man. You know. And if a developer brings up and says, "Hey, you know what? Right now, we foresee that this should be we should spend some time designing this," then put a ticket to design this, to do the design work on the backlog and work on it. If you say, "Hey, product owner, this is what you want," that's your specialty, is figuring out what people want and asking it. I, as a developer or an architect or whatever, decide, "Hey, this is the time that I need to do my job." Then you put that on there, and then the product owner, you add a dependency saying, if you're going to get your feature, this has to be done first. The product owner is going to put this needs to be done first at the top of the backlog. It's not that complicated. It shouldn't be that complicated. Maybe the problem is that in this relationship, the idea is that the product owner is the only one that should have a voice, and that's not the way it is. It's not the way it should be, and we shouldn't be that.
Well, the product owners represent the customer. No?
Sure.
That's the biggest voice, I think.
Yeah, it's the biggest voice in what gets done, not how it gets done or what needs to happen to get that thing done.
Okay.
So if you come back and say, "Hey," you could come back and say that story needs, 7 weeks or 10 sprints or something like that to be done, to feature. And you could then just within that story try to do everything. Or if you want to break it up into stories, separate stories or tickets to work each bit individually, that works too. In both cases, everything that needs to happen is going to happen or should happen. Somebody should say,
that's been my experience.
You can't do upfront design here because this needs to be out in 2 weeks. It's then, sorry, you're not getting it in 2 weeks because there's other things that need to be considered of. So it's just, I think in a healthy environment, you should have that back and forth with it. And I don't know if I've met product owners that if you say, "Hey, we need design time for this," that they go, no, sorry, you can't design it. You have to. They don't tell you how to do your job. That's not what they do. They tell you what people need and what the business needs, and you figure out how to deliver it to them.
I think you addressed it.
Yeah.
My question earlier, where it's something that needs to probably be done before actual user stories are added. So
No,
it's the
it's
architectural
after.
runway. I don't think. All right, so let's talk about healthcare. Okay, let's talk about like personal health information.
Yep. Okay, so hold on.
So it's done after.
No, you said it. Well, it's done. So user stories have to come first, right? Otherwise, you have absolutely no idea what you're trying to build. You have no idea what the requirements would be for it, right? That's part of building out user stories.
Well,
User
okay.
stories are the as a blah blah blah. I want blah 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 for blah blah blah.
I would say that I'm kind of anal, right? I would say that the mission statement and the business objectives come first, and then you can infer at an architectural level um, what are the important components.
So we should just design. So we should just make architectures in case we need them, or what?
I'm saying that based on the business objectives, our architecture that we define needs to accommodate those objectives. Yes.
You mean holistically?
Holistically at an
So,
enterprise
yeah.
level.
So no product should have its own architecture that you work on. Do you get where I'm getting at? Like, if you.
No, I think we're talking past each other.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about formally, there's a business, the mission of the business, and then there's the objectives.
Yeah.
That they need to achieve in order for them to deem themselves successful. The architecture needs to accommodate those objectives in order for the business to achieve them.
Sure.
All right. So one objective may be to protect the confidential data of all members.
Sure.
Right. Confidential data could be social security number. It could be name, address. It could be whatever diagnosis, any health information. All that stuff can't be like leaked out, except for unless it's signed off with third parties that absolutely need that information, and that's a whitelist. Nothing else. So what does that mean? What that means is your app insights or any of your other log servers, they can't have any identifiable information. You understand where I'm coming from now?
Yeah. Okay. No, I get it. But what if the requirements or the user stories are, I want you to build out, or I want a copy of the operation game as a promotional tool to raise awareness about vaccines or something like that.
They want a copy of an operation game.
The operation game. This is totally dumb and contrived, but just think about it for a second. So the the little like
operation.
Yeah, you're making like a little game for this. Okay. What if that's the story? That has nothing to do with PII.
That's completely different from the nature of the business that I described earlier.
But this business, if it's a healthcare business, could be having some sort of promotion. The thing is you don't know, like, you have to know what you're trying to build.
You have to know the nature of the business. That's what I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, but in particular implementation set, you need to know what you're building to know what pieces of that architecture, those visions apply to what you're building. In the case of building a game to spread awareness about something, that's not going to require anything with PII care or anything like that. It's nothing.
Yeah, but that's a totally separate business. It has nothing to do with.
But it could be in the
healthcare. It's a game. It has nothing to do with healthcare.
But it could be
entertainment.
But that business, that organization could decide to do this.
No.
And build software around it, and it has nothing to do with thing. take something maybe just completely different. That's, I don't know, building out something where people can submit documents that have nothing to do with that don't have any of the stuff. You
I
need
get
to know what the user stories are going to be or what you're building. Then you can say, okay, given these requirements or what they're trying to do here, I can take the architectural vision and apply it to this and design something
I
that then
would
features can be built on.
I have a different opinion because I think that you would have to understand the nature of the business.
Yeah.
And once you understand the nature of the business, you can infer what regulations are going to be enforced if you decide to move forward with building out a product. So if I wanted to be a if I wanted to be a new car manufacturer, I want to build cars and 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 have them riding on city streets and freeways, then I need to know that the EPA or Environmental Protection Agency is going to have their standards. I already know that there's the highway, blah, blah, blah government agency, right? They're going to have their rules, their policies that I need to comply with. You know the nature of the business. You know who the regulators are that are within the ecosystem revolving around the nature of the business. And so you know what the cross-cutting concerns are going to be, such as compliance,
But you
right?
already
As
know
one
the product
example.
in that example. That's what I'm saying. You already
Well,
know what the feature is going to be. It's a car.
yeah, the nature of the business is a car. Yes, the product is a car, but then the implementation details are your user stories, right? That's where acceptance criteria comes in. That I would think, right? You get more granular about how with the user stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe I'm yeah. Okay. So maybe I'm thinking that there's a product vision. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there should be a product vision or something that's leading this, or
So,
that I'm missing.
all right.
I'm
So,
thinking that the user stories are part of that vision, and
s-
they can get created ahead of time for sure.
yeah. So if we talk about like if we talk about healthcare, and the example of like you have to protect like personal health information,
Yeah.
all right. It it's going to be very hard as an afterthought.
Not your vaccine status though.
Okay, it's going to be very challenging as an afterthought to build out all these user stories that the product owner has supplied, and then try to retrofit confidentiality so that it doesn't get logged to third party servers. Would you agree? Or you
No.
no?
To,
Okay.
oh wait, you're saying build or to?
It's going to be challenging and it's going to be more error prone to retrofit
Oh yeah,
compliance for personal health information after the user story.
yeah, but that's okay. So I understand where our difference is here
Disconnect.
now. Is
Okay.
that you're thinking of the implementation of the user story? I'm thinking of just definition of it. I feel like the definition needs to be there so you know whether it's even applicable, which maybe a product vision is enough to get that in place. So yeah, okay, yep, yeah. You should, I mean, yeah, you should have an idea up front about what regulations are going to happen and what's going to come down potentially in the future, and try to think through some scenarios before you really start working on it.
Yeah, and how
I mean,
you
that
do.
doesn't mean you can't. You could. I mean, you could. You could. It would still require the design, but you could, choose to implement stuff later, as long as you know how. So like we had a project where we weren't sure quite yet how to actually accomplish a bit of it, but we knew it was going to be constrained to the data access layer. So we said, well, you can go ahead and build out the entire feature stack
Yep.
on top of it, the data access layer,
And just
as
rely
a
on the
mod.
interface
Yeah,
for the
like we'll
data
figure this
leaving
out.
the
Yeah, it's abstracting it away. Just know that whatever you put in place for your initial implementation is going to be replaced.
yeah, we're
But
on the
we
same
can check.
page.
Yeah.
Because I was going to
So
say, like, you have to I would argue that for compliance, you would have to design that into the system so that your developers don't have to think about compliance for every single user story that they're going to implement. Right?
Yeah.
The system does it. It's abstracted away in the bowels of the system.
Yeah.
You don't have
Although
to
they
worry about
should,
it.
they should think about it still. But
Well, if it's abstracted away in a well thought out design, why should they even have to care? The system does it already. It's already been accounted for in the architectural vision. And like you said, if you have an interface that represents the abstraction of processing requests or posts as it leaves the process or the local machine, then yeah, you can go ahead and implement whatever user stories and the implementation details of that interface or abstraction once it leaves that machine can handle the compliance part.
yeah. I mean, you should. It's kind of like I don't know, security. I still feel like even if you have safeguards in place for things, it's still important to consider the security implementation or implications of everything you do, because you need to like think about potential outliers that didn't get thought of. Um, Here's an example, maybe PII protection. Let's say you're doing that, but a developer comes in, they're not thinking about, they're like, oh, this handles PII, but then they add a
Personal
cache.
identifiable information.
Yeah, but then they add a caching layer that they don't realize is, they don't think about that with regards to the cache, but perhaps the cache has a cold storage element that they don't know about, that, and it doesn't invalidate very often or something like that. There might be this PII that sits out there for a really long time. They should know to think about, this contains PII, and I know that this component handles it, but I need to make sure that I'm not adding something else that will now, break that rule. So I don't care how like much you bake into the architecture to handle these kinds of things. As a developer, you should still be cognizant of what you should and shouldn't do with data or processes within the confines of that greater vision. The architecture can't save you from different development or not bad development, mistakes in development. So
I think the more thought you put into it, the higher probability that it can. It's just, are you willing to make that investment, or is the business willing to make that investment?
yeah. Anyways, I
mean, the architecture of a commercial airline protects pilots from a lot of human errors that they may attempt to make. No?
Yeah. That's in this. That's systemic. I'm talking about during development, though. Actually, I don't know if you looked at the safety engineering, but they'll do like airplanes will have like 4 different processes, or like, I don't remember what the number is, but they'll have like 3 different processes written in different languages, or like, let's say 10 of these. They'll have them all written in different languages running on different hardware that compute the same thing. And then they like cross-reference the answers to each other and throw out deviations to reduce
airplanes or rocket engines.
Airplanes, like
okay.
The control systems will, part of the safety engineering is to put in a bunch of redundant work to try to get consensus about the actual answer to a question. It's kind of interesting, but I hope to never work on security or safety.
I want to, like my goal before I tap out of my career is to work in aerospace.
Then why aren't you doing it, man?
Because I'm not smart enough. I can't get past the interviews.
That's you can get past.
I mean, like, I don't know. I think a NASA recruiter may have reached out to me once or twice, but they pay a lot lower than their partners, right?
Yeah, time to get into SpaceX, man.
So you want to be a federal
Blue
employee, or
Origin.
do you want to be a federal contractor? Right.
Yeah.
And the contractors are the ones that make boku.
Yeah. I started reading another book, and I've read the predecessors. There wasn't a lot to this one, but I really like this MJ DeMarco this book, man. If you haven't read Unscripted or Millionaire Fastlane, or this one's The Great Rat Race Escape, which is basically just an echoing of pretty much everything that's in Scripted. He's got a way of writing that kind of makes you like.
So, can you type in the name? You said, what's the name of the book? I'm sick as a dog.
Well, so if you look up, like, here, I can shoot you in a second.
You see a glisten on my face? That's a fever.
Yeah, you don't look too good, man. You should take it easy.
I've been taking it easy. The only good thing about being sick is you get to lose weight.
So let's see, this one, which is Unscripted, I read before. That's actually probably his best book.
You live in your dream house, but there's no mortgage, no alarm clock, no boss, no bills, no claims on the day.
That's what I'm reading now, or listening to, rather.
It makes more money before breakfast. Make no mistake, this life exists. I know because it has been mine for 20 years. And
those are just 3 books. So Millionaire Fastlane was his first book.
So does this compete with the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss?
No, not
Because
really.
that's one of my favorite books. If you ever read it,
that's kind of that. I think he's very much more in line. His main thing is he rails against the idea of saving up for 50 years into 401ks and stuff like that, and so you can die rich.
Yeah, your penis doesn't work and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, so it's the goal with him, or is he very much espouses like, hey, if you want to get rich actually in your twilight, it's basically you have to start a business. And it comes down to the math of the situation. There's no way through just savings and stock market and jobs that you're going to ever achieve any more than mediocre type stuff. But so the one that I'm reading now, which is The Great Rat Race Escape, which is another unscripted book or whatever, that one is he tells like a fictional story, and then he just interweaves a bunch of like concepts into it. So it's a little bit, it's interesting in the way that he wrote it. People get mad at like, oh, this doesn't tell me exactly how to do something. It's more of a mindset shift book than a tutorial type book. I think you'd like it though. I think it would speak to the thoughts you're having.
So like the 4-Hour Work Week, like I had listened to that book, and then I actually like practiced it, and I was successful for like 2 or 3 years. I declared myself retired at like the age of, I think, like 31 or 32, and then everything came crumbling down, and I had to work. Like all these other peasants have to work.
Yeah, but thinking about it in like the one that I'm reading now in relation to what you're working on with your beach delivery thing, that's exactly what he's kind of espousing. You got to build something specialized that's hard to do, and hard to replicate. And I don't know. He mostly just rails against the get rich quick schemes and the and 401k like saving plans and all these kinds of things. I don't know. I think you might like his writing though, especially in one of the unscripted books. Millionaire Fastlane is good too, but
if anybody has anybody ever reached out to you for authoring a book?
Yeah, once.
Yeah,
Manning did.
it happened to me a couple months ago. I think what's the low budget one? What's the low budget publisher?
Low budget publisher. I don't know.
Is it Manning?
Might be
There's
Manning.
there's Manning. There's Apris.
Pragmatic.
I know it wasn't O'Reilly.
O'Reilly. Yeah.
Anyway, they like one of them reached out to me, and hold on, which one has like the cookbooks? I can't remember. One of them reached out to me, and this was like a couple months ago, and like obviously I don't have time, but like real talk, like if and when I ever finish, I'll finish the speech delivery thing. The question is, would I be able to make time to go ahead and port it to Snowplow app and a whole bunch of other different apps and still like refine or preserve the back end systems? Like I would write a book on it, and I think I would probably do well. The question is, how long would it take me to actually like finish the book? And I'm thinking probably just as long as it's taking me to try to finish this. And this is still the MVP, quote unquote.
Maybe.
Yeah. So.
You ever thought of doing the National Novel Writing Month thing?
No, I can't say that I have.
It's in November, so it's
that's not sharing my screen. I hope I'm not sharing my screen still.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Okay.
NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. It's in November. It's like the goal is to write, a novel within the month of November, and there's like particular word, because a novel is defined by a certain number of words or whatever. So there's like tools and stuff built around this to like track how many words you've written and all that stuff.
I'll just look at some of my past text messages and I'll write a graphic novel. Yeah. How many words?
Yeah.
How many words?
But anyways, part of I think I'm thinking about this stuff again, still waiting for this potential OSHA thing to coming down where you get the vaccination status stuff and having to figure out whether I want to try to like coexist in a world where a company can require me to have medical procedures.
Well, if you are a contractor of the federal government, you're not going to have a choice unless you just want to quit.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I will after I get my vaccination, which will happen once the next one becomes available. That's not an mRNA and is not Johnson & Johnson blood clot. But
I wonder if I didn't get vaccinated, would I be having a worse time with my sickness right now? I mean, I don't know if I have COVID. I could still smell.
Did you get your flu shot?
No, I don't think I've ever gotten the. Well, do people get flu shots when they have their when they go to get their annual checkup?
A lot of people do.
Okay, yeah, it's been like 2 years. I'm scared to get an annual checkup because I'm scared I'm going to walk out with something. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a pretty low opinion of the healthcare industry in general. So I think we've touched on that before. But anyways, yeah, sorry, I know it's past time here, but your voice is probably hurting, but it's made me think again about how it like coupling yourself to a company and your livelihood is, and it sucks because you're kind of like beholden to whatever rules and regulations they have. You can't really just make your own way and just just reminds me that let's say I'm happy even with this job for the next 5 years. Eventually, there's a time where I'm gonna move on, and what the fuck am I gonna do then?
So like, I don't know. The first word that jumps out of my mind is domestication. And so there's some humans that are domesticated, where their master is their 9 to 5 company, and they jump up and down whenever the company tells them to jump up and down and go through hoops. And then there's other set of people or breed. They're not domesticated. They 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 look at a job as like a way to pay their current bills, but they're kind of selfish because they're not really interested in their purpose in life or how they live their life to deliver someone else's dreams. They're more interested in being happy and delivering their own dreams, their own purpose.
Yeah.
What's weird is I think like 90% of people are domesticated, where like the company is their master, and they don't think twice about it.
99%.
Yeah.
That's following the script. That's kind of the unscripted thing. The way you're saying domesticated is the script, is what MJ DeMarco talks about. It's the society like has everything scripted to try to get you into debt and living like a consumer lifestyle so that you can drive, I don't know, just drive capitalism and all this stuff. I don't know.
No, I mean it's the truth. Like every time I go to Bank of America to order some checks, they want me to sign up for a credit card, and I say no, thank you. I cut up my last credit card when I was like 20, and never looked. I don't know, just never wanted credit cards. Period. Oh, but it's beneficial. You get discounts with some of our partners, and if you ever want to buy a house or a car, I'm like, no, man, I don't want to. I value peace of mind, man. I value not having to owe hella money to people because of decisions that I've made that I really didn't deserve to have whatever material possession, but because they gave me credit, even though I demonstrated that I didn't deserve it, I went ahead and copped it on my MasterCard or Visa. Like, I wonder how many people lose sleep every night because of the decisions that they made for things that they didn't deserve to have. And when I say deserve to have, if you don't have money in the bank to acquire it, you haven't demonstrated that you should have it. That's my mentality. Now, are there exceptions to it? With a house, yeah. But with a car, no. I think, I mean, is it smarter to buy a car with credit based on inflation, this country's inflation with the US dollar, and the depreciation cost of a car? I can understand why people would say that financing is a better decision. It still requires discipline and maturity. But honestly, I still think I would rather just buy a car cash than do payments, man. That's only because I know my personality type, and once I open up those floodgates, I think it's easier for me to make excuses to acquire other things on credit, and then I'll probably struggle with mental illness, losing sleep because of all this debt that I owe.
Yeah, so, I think you and me must be built a little different than the rest of society, because I don't understand. Like I've met people that live on credit. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I mean, there is something to be said though, that just how like you can't take your riches with you, you can't take your debt with you. Like, I don't know, when I'm 80, I'm
no,
credit cards if I'm not independent.
No. And then your wife is going to be the one to pay for it.
No, not if it's just in my name. Nope.
I'll double check, but it's a financial union when you get married. Like the debt collectors don't stop. I could Google it right now. I hope you're right.
I don't think my sister had to pay any of my brother-in-law's debts off after he whacked himself.
The spouses inherit.
In some states they do. Actually, in South Dakota they still have it where Like your kids can be responsible for your debt.
So it says on some random website, in most cases, an individual's debt isn't inherited by their spouse or family members. Instead, the deceased person's estate will typically settle their outstanding debts. That's assuming they have an estate. In other words, the assets they held at the time of their death will go toward paying off what they owed when they passed. So why did I believe that the widow is going to be held accountable? Like that didn't come from nothing.
I think it's just the natural like thought that like you're co-owning everything, but the truth is like I think there's reasons why, like if you get in a married situation and your spouse runs off and racks up a bunch of debt, but you're still legally married and then dies, like there's a lot of like just gotchas to those laws. But I think in, like I said, South Dakota, they still have it where your family is completely liable to. They don't enforce it at all because it's like one of these things that's fallen out of favor, but it's still technically on the books. So like if you rack up a bunch of debt and your kid will have to pay it off if they're in South Dakota, technically like they could legally come after you because it's still the law.
So what happens when you marry somebody with bad credit? Doesn't that take a toll on your credit score?
I don't think so. You have independent.
So where did this financial union thing come in at? That's only when you get divorced?
I don't know.
Or translated.
It must be in just when you take care of each other. I don't know. Marriage is dumb from a. I don't think that there's any in terms of a. See, that's the thing with like, when gay marriage and stuff was always this big thing. It'd be like, somebody asked me if I was against it. I'm like, yeah, because I'm against all federal.
You're about to get canceled.
Yeah, no, I'm against all government that described like, trying to bake into any sort of like thing like this. It all should just be contracts. There shouldn't be a name for it.
I've been saying the same thing. I'll say F marriage. It should be a leasing agreement. You lease your girlfriend for 2 years. Yeah, and then at the end of like 24 months, you decide if you want to extend the lease.
It shouldn't be like a predefined document. It should be like a list of check boxes that the man and the woman, or the man and the man, or the woman and whoever the heck they want to, whatever you want to do, they go through it and they check. Yes, I want to do this with this person. No, I don't want to do this. I want this. Yes, check, all the way down. They sign it at the bottom. It's not called marriage. It's just a contract.
But you are married, so I don't understand like why you're saying all this.
Because marriage is like a religious thing.
It's a societal thing. You get pressured and you may get ostracized if you don't go through with it, especially if you knock somebody up.
Shotgun weddings.
Like it. Like I forgot who said it, but when you go to like divorce court, it's always about money. It's never about someone wanting their love back, right? It's only about money. That's what divorce court is all about.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. It's just money, right? It has nothing to do with love. Like there's no.
Or kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids are the bigger one. Like I think sometimes people get out of these things and I don't know. There's no alimony in Minnesota, I don't think. But that would suck to live in a place where there's alimony. Well, I think people still end up paying that kind of stuff.
Family courts has to be like a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah.
It makes me want to like move to an Islamic state, man. So I just don't have to deal with all this stuff. Like I would get married if my would-be wife didn't have the same rights that I have. So like if I move to like Syria or name another Islamic state, maybe even Syria,
Iran.
Libya, Iran. Yeah, Iran. Like if I moved to Iran, like marriage wouldn't be that much of an issue, right? Because I knew I wouldn't get raped at the end if it didn't work out.
Well, you can get a prenup, and then you don't have to worry about that even.
No, you still have to worry about it. You want to know why?
Why?
Because even when you have a prenup, you still involve lawyers, and judges. Like
Sure. Just costs money.
it's like we're like brothers from a different mother, man. Like marriage is stupid.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's women control access to sex, and men control access to relationships long term, and that's the trade off. So,
anyways, you should read or listen to while you're sitting and trying to recover this. Read it, listen to Unscripted. That's probably the best one to listen to.
yeah, I'll check it out. I have to finish my safe framework book, and then I'll move on to what's it called? Unscripted or scripted?
Unscripted.
Unscripted.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
listen to the audiobooks, so it's easy. All right, I gotta run.
All right. See ya. Bye.
See ya. Bye.